Gents, absolutely massive game coming up in the Premier League this weekend. Arsenal against Tottenham, North London derby. Both teams are unbeaten to start the season with 4 wins from 5. I'll be at the Emirates. As you can tell, I'm already buzzing. I cannot wait to be there on the streets of North London. It's a great derby, great history, but especially the last 10 years or so, the way it's been to and fro in between the two teams and how close they've been and evenly matched, really, when you think about the squads and the competitions and where they've been finishing in the table. It's just great. It's a great, great rivalry. And Andy, let's start with you first. As a Tottenham fan, this is probably the most excited we've been about Spurs in quite some time, from the style of play and even losing Harry Kane aside. Um, what is your takeaway on Ange Postecoglou so far? And do you agree that this is the biggest test they've had of Ange-ball, right? They played Man United so far, but we've seen they're not going to be up there with the contenders. So going away to Arsenal, I'm intrigued to see if there'll be a slightly more pragmatic approach from Postecoglou. And that would show me that Tottenham have the ability to stay at the top end of the table for the rest of the season. Because it's great seeing them play this swashbuckling football against teams who are sitting back and defending, but that's not going to be the case against Arsenal. They're going to have to be a lot better defensively, right?
Yeah, it is the first real test of the system and the ideas of Ange in the Premier League. And this is the big question when he was hired was he's never been at that level. And he has progressively throughout his career worked his way up and earned, I should mention, every opportunity that he's had as a coach and a manager. And the way that he started at Spurs, I think is, it confirms that he's, the right guy for the job. But at the same time, you're going to face a team now that's going to try and do a lot of the same things that Arsenal or that Tottenham have been doing successfully to start this season. And to your point, Joe, they've faced a lot of teams that have been happy to say, okay, well, you can have the ball. We'll sit back a little bit deeper. We'll force you to break us down. And it took them a long, long time to do that against Sheffield United. They've had some good challenges, some very different challenges so far tactically, but they haven't faced the team yet that when 2 or 3 of the midfielders and 1 or both of the fullbacks are all forward in attack, joining the 3 forwards, and you lose the ball, that you really fear what could happen going back the other direction. And that is something that's a challenge, that's a threat and a fear that Arsenal will put in you from the very, very first moment of this game, because they've got just as many brilliant attacking options up top and in midfield and the fullbacks going forward. So it's very interesting how these two teams kind of reflect one another. They go about it in different ways, but where their threats are concentrated in the team, it's pretty similar. So tactically speaking, I am very curious to see if it's the same system coming from Ange or a little bit more pragmatic. I would think you probably need something in between the two, but you can't, and I repeat, you cannot go too far the other direction. You cannot go too defensive against this Arsenal team. We've seen what that looks like for Spurs in recent seasons.
Andy talked about it there, Nick. It's can't go too defensive, can't change the style too much. But it feels like at Arsenal, there has been a little bit more of a pragmatic approach in these last few games, especially against Man United. And just the fact that the balance seems a bit better this season, particularly with Declan Rice, I think, being in midfield's made a big difference to that and the overall balance of the team. It's a big call, though, right, with David Raya coming in for Aaron Ramsdale the last couple of games and seemingly the new number 1 at Arsenal. So what do you think about that? Arteta's kind of said, we can mix and match the goalkeepers. We can swap them around. But feels like Raya's now the undisputed number 1 at Arsenal. But is that defensive solidity, is that the key to Arsenal taking that next step and not only winning this weekend, but making sure they hang with Man City for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, look at that Manchester United game. And I'll get back to Ryan in a moment, but both teams have played Manchester United. Spurs went at it with them, said, let's see what you got. We'll show you what we got. I mean, I think the XG was pretty even, and they got a couple of big saves and came out with that win. Arsenal went up against Manchester United and treated them a little bit more like they were Manchester United in terms of the game plan, not in terms of respect or whatever, but knowing what threat was there. And Arsenal did what they've largely been doing lately. They shut people down. When Saliba and Gabriel are together, they shut people down. And Declan Rice, you're absolutely right, has helped there. You start to throw in legs a little bit, and it becomes more important to expect more out of your keeper and expect more out of your backs. And listen, I think objectively, with a lot of respect. I don't think Ramsdale is a bad keeper. I don't even think I think he's an above average keeper. David Raya has been better for a couple of years now. And the advanced stats say he's better. They say he's better with the ball at his feet. Mikel Arteta, to his credit, is staying loyal to his guys to a certain capacity. And when he sees an opening, he has tried to improve his team. And I don't know how many times we saw a bad game out of David Raya at Brentford. I really don't. I think he's exceptional. And that's nothing against Aaron Ramsdale. And I want to laud Mikel Arteta for, before the Champions League, getting this guy some minutes and then saying, all right, we gave Aaron Ramsdale a chance to dominate. He was fine. I want to dominate. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, and he's better with the ball at his feet, I'd say, Andy. And in terms of 2 shutouts in his first 2 games, you can't argue with that all of a sudden as well. I think Arteta has been really good at being ruthless when he needs to be over the last 12 to 18 months and just saying, this is how we do it. This is the kind of player we're looking for. The fans are all bought into that. The players who are on the pitch are. And someone like Odegaard, Saka, Gabriel Jesus, these are guys that just epitomize what Arsenal are trying to do here. The hunger, the determination. They give nothing but everything they've got each time they step out on the pitch. They've obviously got the quality as well, which you need. And that's why they've taken the big strides forward. But I'll go back to it. Before, the balance seems better this season than last season. You always kind of felt like they were overachieving and weren't quite sure when it was going to go the other way last season. But this season feels a lot more steady and solid, and they actually built on what they did last season. So that's why I'd be a bit more positive, I think, if I'm Arsenal going into this one, and be a bit more confident of a result against Tottenham. But anything to add there, Andy? Because you're our resident Spurs expert here at PGA.
Yeah, no, Arteta is certainly further, obviously, along in the progression and the timeline of the project that he's got going on in Arsenal versus where Ange is at 5 Premier League games into his time at Spurs. And so you would expect that. You would expect him to have a much better idea, and he's had multiple transfer windows to bring players in. And to your point, you've got a fine enough goalkeeper, but if you see someone that fits a little bit better, or the way that you want to play or take the team in a different direction, he's now doing that. And that's the mark of a good manager. That's someone who can look at things objectively and say, okay, we're good, but we want to be great. And yeah, I'm not hedging quite on just kind of where the 2 teams are in their projects for the result this weekend, but certainly I think a lot of things favor Arsenal at this point.
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw for my score prediction, Nick Mendola. I feel like there's going to be a lot of goals, quite open, and yeah, I think both teams are in a very good place, confident. But as much as I've lauded Arsenal's defensive capabilities, I still feel like Spurs have enough going forward to cause them problems. So, what are you going for?
Yeah, I think Arsenal would have a really good chance of limiting Spurs' chances normally, but they asked a lot of their big players to do a lot of things at midweek, and so I'm going to go with 2-2 as well.
Oh, nice. Andy, full house?
No. I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. Just objectively speaking here, we have not seen Spurs in this Spurs team and Ange in what that arena will be for this game. And it's always very intense. It's always overwhelming, especially the first one of the season. And I just think that's going to be a bridge a little bit too far for Spurs at this point. They won't be embarrassed. I don't think they'll be played off the field the way that they have been in recent games against Arsenal. But it's asking a lot at this point of the season. If it was a month later, maybe. But at this point, I'll go 2-1 Arsenal.
It's a very good point, though, about Tottenham not having midweek action, so they're much more rested than Arsenal. Let's see, because it's still a new thing for a lot of these Arsenal players to play playing Champions League midweek and then Premier League the weekend. What we do know is it's going to be absolutely intense. The atmosphere, you've got 2 managers who their players will absolutely run through a brick wall for. And you have some really talented players all over the pitch, but especially in the attacking areas for these 2 teams. And they want to entertain. They want to score goals. They want to create. So all that leads us to be expecting a very, very exciting and intense North London derby. And make sure you head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest how to watch information, team news, live analysis and updates. I'll be there at the Emirates, and I cannot wait to savor that atmosphere because these games are always big. But right now, with both teams flying high, A new manager at one, a lot of new players. This is exciting to have this early in the season and get a really good measuring stick on just how good Arsenal and Tottenham are going to be. And North London derby, it always delivers drama.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.